Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Art Benedetto, Superintendent of School.
Joseph Picarillo, Assistant Superintendent.
We're here to talk to you about next week, February 1st, Monday. It is our humble attempt to reopen our schools for students in the following circumstances. There will no longer be an A or B option. Students will either come to school every day or, at their family's wishes, remain virtual. This is the biggest difference that we have in terms of being open. One reason that we're putting this forth has to do with the fact that since this announcement, we've had a large number of parents who are cautious, and that is respected and understood, but they are opting for full virtual. So our A-B numbers will be less than anticipated if we counted up the original A-B designations. And that, I believe that's fine. Like I said, we totally respect parents who are being cautious, or overly cautious, as some of us might say. On the other hand, we feel that there have been enough changes as we learn from our experiences. There have been enough changes for us to come back to school in a manner that will be appropriate. One of those changes has to do with the fact that we no longer have to treat probable cases as actual cases. That is a major game changer for us. That will allow us to concentrate on circumstances of real things happening. Additionally, studies are showing, and Joe will detail this, but studies are showing that the virus spreads in different ways. Can you tell us about the study?
Well, sure. I mean, essentially, as we learn more about the virus, we learn that we don't know so much about the virus. But the latest study that came out showed that 50% of people that have COVID are not showing symptoms. So there's been a lot of discussion about whether we should take temperature checks or whether we should do other sorts of screenings. At the end of the day, 50% that have it aren't going to know they have it. And the ones that have it, some of them are asymptomatic, or they only got a positive test because they went in for a procedure or they came back from quarantine. So, here's the truth of the matter. And Mr. D mentioned it a little bit just now. We no longer have to treat probable cases as actual cases, and that's a key component. But then some will say to me, so there's someone that might be next to me with symptoms, and we don't consider them COVID cases and they're coming to school? Let's be very clear on this. When in doubt, don't go out. So, if you feel sick, stay home. That's never changed. And in fact, that's been the case before coronavirus, right? When you're ill, you don't go to school because you could impact others, right? It's just smart decision making. So, regardless of what the protocols coming from the Department of Health are, you should always be cautious and stay home if you're sick. There is a should and there is a must. We no longer must consider probable cases as actual cases. You no longer must quarantine in certain situations. However, should you stay home? The fact of the matter is, you still should. And that's, I think, an important understanding for the public to have, because we want to stay open long term. This relaxing of DOH protocols is helping us to do that. But you know who's going to help us most to do that? You, the parents at home watching this. You will help us most to stay open. If we all are cautious, if we all keep children home when they're showing some symptoms, even still, we won't totally eliminate the virus. We know there will be a situation or two that will come up. Like I said, many people are asymptomatic and are passing it. This will happen. I don't want you to be surprised if that does happen. However, Mr. D will share about this. In those situations, we will look at each of them on a case-by-case basis as they come up, and we will work with our nurses to make the best decision, and the Department of Health, and if necessary, we may close a school rather than the whole district for a period of time. And Mr. D can talk more about that.
Well, there's no need to talk anymore. Joe just covered everything. In Italian, he's called a gacchiarone. It needs to be understood. If a child comes to school with symptoms, we're sending the child home. We're not going to keep them in school. The biggest difference is we don't have to do contact tracing for probable cases. That's what took up so much time. We couldn't do it efficiently, and that's why we ended up closing after 3 days. It was overwhelming. So that's the biggest difference. If a child comes to school with a fever, a child comes to school with a cough, goodbye, we're sending the child home. But we don't have to contact trace that child's whereabouts. And that is a major component as to how we can stay open. Joe mentioned, and we didn't have this in place last time, if we have an outbreak at one school, we're not going to close the whole district down. We can close one school down and do virtual instruction for a time period, such as a quarantine period, but we can keep the other schools open if they're healthy. We also discovered some interesting stuff. Parents of young kids want their children in school, so our younger classes at Durban and Tulsa Trail, I have a few classes with no virtual kids left. They're all going to be there. That's great. At the middle school, we have more students all virtual, and at the high school, we have a larger percentage of kids all virtual. This will mean manageability. Some parents have emailed us about social distancing. From the beginning, we've put forth the concept that social distancing is something that we do when it is practicable. It's not a requirement. We do it when we can. That's why we bought the shields for the kindergarten, first, second, third, and fourth grade, because so many of those children are back in school. Social distancing was not something we could possibly do. It wasn't practicable. So that rule remains in effect. We're doing it when we can, but it's not always doable, so we try to use other measures. I've gotten emails about masks. We had very little problem with kids and staff wearing masks. I do have a small coterie of parents who believe that having special ed students wear masks is discriminatory. I totally disagree with that. I must state very specifically, masks are the key towards not spreading the virus in an environment of groups. They are vital. In no way would we discriminate against a child, but we will require the child to wear a mask. That's just a basic medical recommendation.
And then a couple of things to add, because I want to put some things in important context. If you're watching this video, there will be some of you that think we should never open. There will be some of you that think that we should have opened a long time ago. And so I just want to put things in context. Starting on Monday, February 1st, every school in the county will be open. So when you hear that Hopatcong is opening, I want you to know that we are not doing something that is outside the norm of what the whole county is doing. In fact, we are in complete alignment with what the whole county is doing. And another important context is we are open every day until November 13th was our last day. Then we got hit hard. We opened for a little bit. We still had struggles and we're coming back. But when we closed on November 13th, we actually closed a week prior to almost every other school district. And when a lot of school districts were back this past week, we were closed. So we're actually taking what is actually a more cautious approach than many of our neighbors have done. We had several cases in Hopatcong, and this was a community, the DOH calls it a community outbreak. I know that sounds frightening, and in some cases, in some ways it is, but we had to shut down because of this community outbreak. But if you look across the whole scope of the year, I believe we've been very cautious and we take the decisions to go back to school very seriously. We think that we can do this in the best interest of students health-wise, but realize this last piece. Our role as assistant superintendent and superintendent in the school district is to make the best educational decisions for kids. If I talk to a nurse will give me a decision that is only based in health recommendations. If I speak to the Department of Health, I'll only get health recommendations. But if, as the governor has mentioned many times, when he makes a decision, he makes it considering many factors, right? He doesn't make decisions based solely on health. He makes decisions based on many things. So even when we talk about health, it's not just the virus. We also talk about the mental health of students. We also talk, we've had many instances of student anxiety and depression. We've had many instances of domestic abuse that has risen since the pandemic. So that paired to what Mr. D always talks about, which is our special ed population, which is a large population of our students, frankly, and the fact that it should not be shocking news to know that many students, the majority of students, especially students that are in K through grade 7, online learning is not conducive to the best way for education. So I want all those things to just be put in perspective for you. And just know that if you're someone that still feels students should be at home, you'll always have that option. As long as the governor has given us that option, it does not look like it's going away. So we're talking about kids are coming back. If you're at home saying, I'm not sending my kid back, well, then don't. You still have the opportunity to do online learning, and it does not look like that's going anywhere. And then the last piece that I wanted to mention regarding the schedule. Schedule will continue to be half days, and perhaps it's half day is a bit of a misnomer. It's really a early dismissal day because lunch is still not something that we're able to do in a safe way. It would be difficult to do social distancing. I know we already said it's not always practicable, and that's true, but also eating, by nature, students would take their masks off, right? So until we come up with a safer way to do that, we're not going to be doing full days. I got to be honest with you, we are working to come back to full day. Once we figure out a way to do this safely, I'm sure Mr. D will make that change. But right now, this is not happening for February 1st. So it continues to be that old schedule you had, that early dismissal schedule if you're coming to school.
Some parents have also contacted us about being in the quote-unquote red zone. If you recall from past conversations, the Department of Health puts forth a color-coded circumstance with regard to cases. We are not in the red. There is a media group out there that is claiming we are, and they're looking at it from a different perspective than the Board of Health. We've always gone with the Department of Health. We are not in a red. We're in orange.
We've been in orange for a long time.
And I believe, I don't want to say this too soon, but we will strongly consider going back to school full-time with lunches and phys ed when the next designation comes to us. When we go from, we're not in red, we're in orange. What's the next one? Yellow?
Yellow, yeah.
When we go to yellow, that is when we will consider going back full-time. Please note, the best laid plans of mice and men don't always come to fruition. It's supposed to snow Monday and Tuesday. Please note the following. If it snows Monday, we will have a traditional snow day. We will not have a virtual day on Monday, and that would be to allow our staff a little more time to prepare for live instruction. If it snows Monday and Tuesday, we would have a virtual day on Tuesday. But I don't want to put the cart before the horse, but you could look forward to an announcement on Sunday that Monday, if it's snowing and we can't have school, would be a traditional snow day. Speaking of the faculty, I am totally understanding and respectful of the fact that some of our faculty members are not happy about coming back. They believe it's a risk. Many of those faculty members already have accommodations, teaching from home, teaching virtually, isolated in a room, et cetera, okay? I know that our faculty will do its work professionally with full vigor. I am not worried about that. I do respect the fact that they're not happy with the superintendent about reopening, and I will deal with that as time goes on. But bottom line, they will serve your children very well because that's what they do. In summary, we are looking to get kids where they need and have to be so that they can enjoy learning, they can enjoy interacting with their peers, so that they can enjoy working with their teachers, and they can enjoy getting the special services that many of them need. We are excited. We are very hopeful. We will continue to act in a manner that is in the best interest of kids, with safety and caution right behind that. Joe, anything left for you to say, sir?
The only thing left to say really is that I personally, and I know Mr. D, we personally know some people that have COVID right now. Some of our friends, some of our family members, some people in our community. And from me and Mr. D, we just want to say that we're really, really praying and wishing you the best. And we're hoping that you recover quickly. I know this virus impacts everyone differently. And so understand that whenever we say we're making a decision and we're going back to school, I never want it to be taken out of context that we don't truly feel for those that have been impacted and those that are being impacted right now. That's not something that we take lightly. So we sincerely hope everyone is safe and that everyone continues to take the precautions. And if you do that, we're going to be safe together and we'll keep the kids in school.
Remember, we have until noon today to identify any change in your student's status. If the student, if you want the student who is an A or B student to be fully virtual, you need to contact us. That would be helpful. I've gotten 100 emails on this. I am very impressed by how many of those emails were thought out by parents. I'm very appreciative of having input. I understand the difficulty that some are facing in making the final decision, but let us know by noon today, and full speed ahead. God bless.